driving through Arizona, and there are some really impressive rock structures out here.
It's awesome, isn't
it? You can tell we're getting into Canyonland.
We've been driving past that plateau for like an hour.
This big one over there.
Yeah, it's just massive. It's really cool.
We've seen some Mustangs, at least what we would think are Mustangs. Out here, along every highway, they have, it's hard to tell, but that's basically a fence flashing by. And it's not a big restraining fence or anything like that. It's just poles with wire, I think.
Barbed wire, yeah.
Barbed wire, and then cow gates whenever there's a road that intersects it. And for a long time, we thought that fence was because it was owned land. But the more we see it, it's literally everywhere. So we're starting to think that it's probably just the same effect that, like in Maine, for instance, they have the fence along the side of the road to keep big game off of the road. And these fences around here probably serve the same function to keep Mustangs and, you know, pronghorn, sheep, whatever else is running around away from the road, just to prevent roadkill. And to be fair, there's been a lot less roadkill out here than you'd see.
And all of it has been small. We've seen
raccoons or a couple coyotes.
But we haven't seen any pronghorn.
But there's been no deer or anything
no
like
sheep,
that.
No deer.
Yeah.
Nothing like that. So that's got to be what it is.
Yeah, and for that reason, we've seen a couple of horses that don't seem to be near anything else. And
we've seen probably about 2 dozen.
Yeah.
You know, and
in various groups.
Yeah, I honestly think that they're probably Mustangs.
Yeah.
You know?
They're well-fed Mustangs, for sure. Yeah. They are not scrawny.
Well, and you can see that, you know, especially around this area, not so much further north, but around this area, the people living here leave water out for them. Mm-hmm. You know, but we haven't seen any brands, we haven't seen any halters or anything like that. I think they're
not
horses.
Yeah, the tails and manes are ungroomed, and a lot of them have young with them, which is pretty indicative.
Yeah, so I think they're probably wild horses. You know, unfortunately, it's, you know, like no one keeps domesticated, you know, pronghorn or bighorn sheep.
So it's a little more obvious, yeah.
The zoo. So when you see those, you're like, oh wow, wild bison and pronghorn, that's cool. But the Mustangs are a little bit more difficult, especially since a lot of people around here do the
big open range.
Yeah, the open range, the free range with their horses. But typically when people do that, they brand their horses. They'll use a cold brand instead of doing the actual, like, put it in the fire and burn it.
Yeah. But they'll do a lot of times they'll do what like race horses do, and they'll put they almost freeze dry it, and their fur turns white as a result of it. That's what we have back east.
Mm-hmm. That's what we did on the ranch.
Yeah, Halston was branded.
Yeah, so I mean, if we're gonna brand, you know, horses on we had about 60 acres in Southern California. I'm sure they're going to brand horses out here in all of this area.
Yeah, you're going to brand them in a place.
You know,
see, there's some right there.
Horses can walk off. Yep, right there. Yeah,
there's literally nothing. Yeah, there's literally nothing else around.
Nothing around here. You know, so it's pretty cool. I almost want to hop off and drive over there, but we're kind of in the wrong vehicle to do it.
I think it could handle it. I'm not so worried about that, but you know, we do have a pretty long way to go.
We have a ways to go yet, so
we're gonna loop up and see the Hoover Dam today, which will hopefully take some of the sting out of not being able to actually spend the night at the Grand Canyon and everything.
But it's gonna add some time to the trip.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I think we're probably not gonna get into Oceanside until like 8.
But I do think your grandmother said that, or your aunt said that she'd put aside dinner for us if we're going to be late. So. But it really is, I'm not sure that I would be okay handling the heat out here, but it is really quite beautiful.
It does get hot.
Yeah, it gets very hot. You can tell it gets hot just looking at the landscape. Yeah. It's greener than Wyoming, but you can tell that it's greener as a result of things like, you know, lower elevation rather than...
Yeah, it's greener because you're at a lower elevation. Also, it's greener because it's just different types of grass. The scrubby grass, you know, you get more actual grassland up towards Wyoming and South Dakota and Nebraska and stuff. But there's almost no trees.
Yeah.
You know, no large trees, and even the trees that they do have.
See, there's another
are
big
quite
grouping
small.
up in there.
Yeah, those are mustangs. You know, but even the trees that they do have are quite small. It's the chaparral type, you know, vegetation.
Yeah, and
So-
you've got these very stark red rocks that literally are quite sandy.
Yeah, it's all sandstone.
Yeah,
you know.
it's washed away if there's excessive amounts of rain. So
Yeah, whereas, you know, up towards Wyoming, you know, and Idaho and Montana and those areas, it's still very rocky, but it's more granite. You know?
yeah, the harder stuff that
Yeah,
there's sandstone up there, but it's not in anywhere near the same quantities. And the
Yeah.
rocks, it's Rocky Mountain rocks as opposed to
Exactly.
stuff you're getting
I mean,
here.
this is part of the Rockies, but it's completely different.
The structure
You know.
and the makeup
Yeah.
of it, you can tell just by looking at it. Canyons as opposed to big giant mountains, snow caps. So
You know, instead of driving through the mountains and having the mountains loom up at you, you're driving through. You know, we're driving on top of a huge plateau right
and
now.
it just falls away from you.
and
It's
it
the
just
opposite.
falls away. So, you know, you'll see it you can see it coming through here.
Yeah.
But pretty much all these formations, except for the really stark ones that just jut up, are formed from water, you know.
Yeah. Runoff and everything.
I mean, the water might not have been around here for, you know, a million years or more, but still, these formations are from water running through the sandstone. You know,
Yeah.
that's what created all the arches and stuff like that we've already seen. You know, definitely see it in the canyons. You know, so. Did you know that we were actually, where we spent the night was on the Mesa Verde?
Yes, I did actually, because
Do you know
Cortez
where-
is part of that.
Yeah, do you know where you've heard that before?
Besides my anthropology,
Besides your anthropology.
not offhand.
McClintock. The John Wayne movie.
Ah,
That's
yes.
where it was set, was on the Mesa Verde. Remember, he gave the homesteaders
Yep.
a speech that says, you know, you can't farm on the Mesa Verde. God made this land for buffalo, and it works well for cattle, but you
But it
you
ain't for
can't,
man,
you
yeah.
can't farm at 10,000 feet above sea level. And that.
Yep.
It's exactly where we were. It is a huge
Plateau.
plateau.